This is a very special Stanchies, not just because we're doing it right after a World Series game where the Blue Jays won, but also because we're debuting my new haircut. Pretty cool. Hello everybody, my name is Lachlan and I am the writer for the Stanchies for tonight's game between the Vancouver Canucks and the St. Louis Blues. Again. Thanks, Wyatt. The Canucks and the Blues faced off against each other about 2 weeks ago, and when we made a video on that game, not really much has changed as far as the strategy for the Canucks is concerned about winning and beating the Blues. The only real differences are the fact that the Canucks are just full of injuries right now, and the Blues are dead last in the Central Division, and having lost their last 4 games in a row. Rather than rehash the exact same talking points we did in the last Canucks Blues video, I thought this would be a great time to take questions from the audience, from you guys. That's why I went to Twitter, Blue Sky, and our Discord server, The Couve, which you should definitely join if you're not a part of, and asked you guys what you wanted to hear in this video. What did you guys want me to talk about? And you guys came up with some good questions. Does the success of the Whitecaps, Lions, and Blue Jays make it easier to stomach how catastrophic the injuries, process, and results have been for a team that's supposedly desperate to succeed, at least in the short term? I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword for the Canucks. On one hand, yes, they're definitely getting a little bit of the benefit of hiding behind some other teams right now locally. Specifically, I would say the Blue Jays being the biggest one. They are frankly the biggest sports story in Canada right now. They are 1 win away from the World Series, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a huge fan, but at the same time, the Canucks are also never really are able to hide behind the success of the other local teams, specifically the Whitecaps and the Lions. I think regardless of how those teams are doing, the Canucks are always going to be number 1 in the market when it comes to local interest. Overall, in the local market, no, the Canucks are always going to have more eyeballs, more interest, more opinions from people on them than they are those teams. That being said, when it comes to ticket sales and that kind of stuff, I think the Canucks are definitely seeing some dips in the market right now. It's no secret that we're in a bit of a recession right now, and the fact of the matter is that when it comes to entertainment and the amount of money people are willing to spend on things like, say, sports tickets, that budget is definitely smaller than it would be at a different point in time. And if you're a casual sports fan, who are you more likely to want to go see right now? Are you going to go see the Canucks, who are kind of hovering around 500, treading water, not really a bona fide playoff team at this point in time? Or would you rather go see Thomas Muller and the Whitecaps across the street, who are in the playoffs? Or the BC Lions, who are also about to play in the Western semifinal for their final game at home this season? The Caps and the Lions are definitely the hotter teams right now, but again, when it comes to the media side of things, the Canucks are always going to have top billing. We'll see what happens when the PWHL team comes in, how much they're able to kind of compete with the Canucks for local eyeballs and local interest, but as far as the Canucks are concerned right now, I think the biggest thing that they're worried about is people buying tickets for other sports, other events, other entertainment, and having to think about the fact of maybe the prices on Canucks tickets are too high for the product they're getting right now. How would you spin the current spate of injuries into a single-year retool while still encouraging Hughes to re-sign at the end of it? This team has so many holes up front that I'm concerned they will give away too many prospects and the coveted #1 draft pick to chase playoff berth. Tying both of those questions together, I don't really think that there is a true scenario where the Canucks can commit to a legitimate retool without necessarily ruffling feathers with a player like Quinn Hughes. Hughes expects to win now. He expects to be competing for a playoff spot. I know there's already talk from some people about, well, they should consider trading Quinn Hughes, that the package you would get back could be huge for rebuilding the entire roster again. That's a topic we'll talk about a different day. Frankly, it could be an entire video within itself. Honestly, the injuries make it probably easier for the Canucks to not really go for a full-time retool. You can't really trade the players who are on your injured list, and any sort of situation where you're moving pieces to bring in a short-term fix, a playoff rental per se, it's going to have to come from sacrificing your young guys, your draft picks. Are you willing to sacrifice a Jonathan Lekermacki or a Tom Wielander or an Elias Pettersson just for the chance to squeak into the playoffs? Because that's not really what Hughes is looking for. He's not looking for a team that can just barely get into the playoffs. He's looking for a team that can consistently win. And more likely, that is going to come from growing with the players you have and developing the players you have, as opposed to bringing in a guy in March who is only going to be here for a couple months. There are definitely places the Canucks could make changes. They could definitely find an upgrade at center. I think any player you would get from your second line center, unless you are guaranteeing that he is going to re-sign long term, you're better off keeping the young prospects that you already have in your system than trading for that player just to be a rental. There's also the aspect of once those players get back and are healthy, you still have to have the cap space to have those players on your roster. So the odds of the Canucks trading for anybody of real value is very low. You're not going to trade a guy who's on an $850K salary for a player making $5 million right now with the state the Canucks are in. They just don't have the space to do that. Either way, when it comes to Quinn Hughes, I don't think you're going to be able to really convince him truly, if you're the Canucks, that, oh, a retool's in your best interest as well as ours. I think at that point, he's just going to be like, I'm out. I'm not going to sit through this. It's still early, but do you think with stuff like doing bag skates during morning skate, potential deployment issues, shake confidence in Foote, also could be a silver lining of the injuries forcing Foote to lean on Petey might be beneficial in the long run when/if they can get healthy again, as he seems like he's ramping his game up and will be forced to given the state of the team. So starting with the bag skate thing, I will defend Foote slightly on that one. From what I've heard, it sounds like they really only did like 2 back and forth skates each. It wasn't like a full-on bag skate until you're tired and exhausted type of situation. So I would say that was not as big a deal as I think it was kind of made out to be in the time. So with that context, I think that that clip being talked about as like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing, was maybe a little overblown. As far as Foote is concerned, I think that it is very difficult for him to instill a system on a team that has players dropping like flies from injuries. I think it's hard to establish the culture you want or establish the style of play that you want when you haven't had a team at full health, frankly, the entire season. That being said, the Canucks are definitely making mistakes. There is still the mentality of next man up that every team gets injured. You can't necessarily just throw your hands up and go, well, we're injured. What can we do? You're expected to win regardless of who's in your lineup every day. So much of what the Canucks are doing right now is very much trying to stay afloat as they hope for players to heal up in time so that they can get those reinforcements back in. So with regards to Foote, while I'm definitely not loving everything I'm seeing, particularly from the deployment side of things, I also think it's hard to fully judge what he has done and what his coaching has accomplished when so many players are injured. And maybe down the line, we'll look back at this as like, well, that was the problem. The system that they were playing was creating more injuries and causing more issues. But again, it looked like the Canucks were on a bit of an uptick turn up until the game against Washington, when they ended up with 3 players all going out, all core players getting hurt in the same game, and suddenly you're down an entire forward line. I think we will be able to judge Foote more as players get back into the lineup, but as far as right now is concerned, again, so much of this is just surviving. It's just fighting another day. You look at that game against the Rangers, they lose 2-0. They're frankly in the game the whole time. They just could never really find that sustained pressure, and again, that's hard to do when you have so many players jumping up from Abbotsford who weren't here 2 days ago at practice with you. As for with Elias Pettersson, I do think that this is actually a very good thing. That the fact is, in the early parts of the season, one of the things that I was taking a little bit of issue with when it came to Foote's early coaching results was that he wasn't playing Elias Pettersson enough. He wasn't giving him enough, especially 5-on-5 ice time to really figure his stuff out. Fast forward to now, when Quinn Hughes is out of the lineup, and all of a sudden, Elias is taking on a huger role. He's taking in a bit of a leadership role. He's scoring more. He's getting more points. Part of that was the fact that they put him with Connor Garland, and I think that they were really developing a good partnership. There's been coaches in the past that have not necessarily wanted to have Garland and Pettersson playing together since they're both undersized players. Foote has not let that thinking keep him from putting those two together, and clearly that chemistry was there. But then Garland gets hurt, and now Pettersson doesn't have his key line mate that has been so successful for him. I think overall Pettersson will get more looks. He will be more willing to take the shot that he needs to now that he doesn't have as many of his best line mates and best teammates to bounce off of and to facilitate for. I think this will be beneficial overall to Pettersson's confidence that he will be able to call on his own number more often. There's also the aspect of, with so many players out, teams will be able to ISO in on Pettersson more, so he will have a bit more of a challenge, as opposed to when everyone is healthy, there's more weapons for them to have to pick and choose from, that Pettersson would have a little bit more open ice in those cases. Now we're in a situation where Pettersson is going to be pretty much on an island. He is very much the only threat when he is on the ice. The only serious threat, I should say, when he is on the ice. So teams will be able to hone in on him a little more. But Pettersson's a player who's never really shied away from that kind of pressure, so I think he'll welcome that challenge. And I think overall, yes, by the time those players are healthy and back in the lineup, we'll be looking at the type of Pettersson we've seen in recent games, the one that looks like a classic Elias Pettersson playing at his absolute best and his absolute best potential. DePetey's PK deployments. All right, say less. So looking at the numbers on Natural Stat Trick, Elias Pettersson has played 14 minutes and 46 seconds of penalty kill time, which is 4th among Canucks defenders so far this season, and frankly, definitely far and away the lowest of any defenseman who has played in all 11 games. Philip Peronic, Marcus Pettersson, and Tyler Myers have all played over 30 in that time span. The Canucks have certainly given up a lot more chances with DePetey on the ice during penalty kills than they have with other defensemen on the ice. The chances the Canucks have given up with DePetey on the ice have definitely been high. They've allowed 22 chances against compared to only 3-4. But again, that's to be expected. It's a penalty kill. There's obviously going to be a discrepancy there. The big thing for DePetey is that his expected goals against is actually relatively low for the amount of time that he's played. It's only at a 1.97, which compared to his teammates, they've all played obviously much more. But despite the amount of time he has played, which is, again, about half of the rest of his line mates, his expected goals against is less than half of those other defenders. So he's doing okay. His expected goals for is relatively close in line with the rest of his teammates, relatively speaking. It's still lower than Myers, who has a 20 expected goals for. He's done quite well in that scenario. And in that time, the Canucks have only given up 2 goals with him on the ice. They've given up 5 with everyone else. When we look at Elias Pettersson's numbers compared to his other teammates, he's certainly not doing as well as they are in the defensive side of the puck, but at the same time, that makes sense. He's the youngest one of the 4 by a good margin. We're definitely seeing a player who is young and making more mistakes and very much learning on the fly right now, and you're seeing teams being able to take advantage of that more with him. But also Elias Pettersson, as far as hockey stat cards goes, shows that he's above 0. He is a net positive on the penalty kill, so that's a feather in his cap as well. I think the Canucks could absolutely benefit from giving DePetey a little bit more responsibility on the penalty kill. I think it's possible that he could play a little bit more ice in, but again, he's very much learning. You don't want to throw too much of him at once, but at the same time, with the Canucks in the injury situation that they're in currently, they might have no choice but to give him a little bit more responsibility and let him take a little bit more chances on the penalty kill. If they feel that he is capable of growing into that role, then maybe it benefits you, especially in the early going of this season, to let him have more opportunities, let him take more chances on the penalty kill and turn into a bit of a PK specialist if they feel that that is something he's capable of. Well, this video took a lot longer than I was expecting it to. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click like, make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers on this YouTube channel before the end of the year. That way I can make bigger and better videos over the course of this season. And I will see you for the Stanchies after tonight's game between the Canucks and the Blues on CanucksArmy.com. See you there.